Welcome. It's great to have you here for another day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana. That is a continuous, dedicated practice with belief that it will have benefits. And today I'm really getting on the bandwagon about the belief that it will have benefits because sometimes things happen that just break your heart. As a sidebar, one of the interesting things I found about this year-long little video series is I thought I'm really going to have to plan because I'm going to run out of things to say, and I don't. And a lot of things come up spontaneously. So today is spontaneous, and we'll see what comes out of my mouth. But, I keep trying to get out of chapter 8, which is about death. And we also talked yesterday about this idea from Samkhya Yoga that I love this: something does not come from nothing. Right? So if I wanted to have an apple tree, but I didn't have an apple seed, that would not help. If I had a pear seed, I couldn't make an apple tree. If I had no seeds, I couldn't make an apple tree. And this can be extremely useful as we look at what's inside of us, because the way we react in daily life doesn't come from nothing. There's something inside of us. There's something inside of certain people that seem to make them more trusting, certain people that make them more loving, or I could even say certain beings. And today I'd really like to encourage you to look at what's inside you. I talked previously about how we can't make change by trying to make change. And I'm seeing this demonstrated in a couple of the dedicatees today. The way we change is we become aware. One of the best ways to become aware of what's inside of us is to be squeezed, like little tubes of toothpaste, if you have those. In fact, when I was taking Aikido, remember that free Aikido and yoga event coming up on Sunday, one of the martial arts teachers said that the purpose of martial arts and training is to squeeze you, to stress you, and to see what comes out so that you can notice it, acknowledge it, and address it if you so choose. And I think we also need to look at that on a societal scale. When we squeeze our particular society, our culture, what comes out? And I'm thinking of this especially because of a couple of things that have happened. So today's practice is dedicated to Rebecca Cheptegei. And if you haven't heard the story, she's a Ugandan Olympic athlete who competed in the marathon, came home, and was set on fire by her boyfriend and died. And the news article I read also said that this is not, unfortunately, seeming uncommon amongst elite women African athletes or unique female African athletes, that there seems to be a trend of they go home, and not just in Uganda, but for example in Kenya, and they're attacked and killed by their male significant others. So that's something to look at. And of course, then the article said, people who are responding are like, this has got to change. This has got to change. Let's just take a look at that. What happens? Why is this happening when people in that culture are squeezed? Why? And here in the United States, Apalachee High School, I'm chanting for all of you, yet another school shooting. And if you've been part of the United States, you know that people have been calling for change for a long, long time, and it's not changing. Why? What about our culture, when we squeeze it, is popping this kind of response out? What? And then the final dedicatee. So this is a little different. Bailey, who has come to my yoga classes often with his human, Sandra, is unfortunately needing to get put down today at about 20 years old. And what a beautiful soul he was. And I'm struck by, many of our four-footed friends, when they get squeezed, what happens? Like my Oliver, when he gets stressed with me, or when I pick him up and squeeze him, he gets a little, but he doesn't hurt me. He might put his teeth on me or his claws on me to show he can, but he doesn't hurt me. He's got a gentle heart, and I know Bailey did as well. So to Bailey, Tip, and Sandra, may you feel support through this transition. And actually, I've got a different link today than the Aikido one I mentioned. You can find that in previous videos, but if you look below, I've put together a couple of yoga, courses on using yoga to address death in the dying process and also grief in the mourning process. And there's a link to those below. And for today, in honor of our friend Bailey, if you would sign up for either of those, you'll get 40% off today and tomorrow through September 6th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. 40% off just to honor Bailey in some small way. So, yeah, when we're squeezed, what comes out? I mentioned previously that one of the guidelines I was giving for dating somebody is to look at how they treat wait staff. But also another guideline I got is look at how they react when they're in a stressful situation. What comes out? And another wonderful tip I've heard is when people show you who they are, believe them. Because we might want to change them. Change has to come from within and with self-acceptance. And that starts with us. We're going to squeeze ourselves gently with a balance pose. And then I'll invite you to contemplate when you are squeezed in your life or stressed. What comes out? And it's not about judging. It's about noticing. What comes out of you when you squeezed? Just to notice. Shall we explore? See what comes out? Let's do our... Oh. I've had a flock of mourning doves that's been here every morning, like 11, 12 of them. So if they're starting to gather, if you hear them, you can enjoy. Switch sides. Let's come on back for our contemplation. So what comes out of you when you're squeezed? It could be feeling embarrassed, threatened, financially stressed. Think of a situation and just observe. That's all. Observe. 5 minutes. Welcome back. I wonder what you noticed today. I noticed something about myself for sure. And the Bhagavad Gita is all about noticing this process. Arjuna represents our limited selves and what happens to that limited self when it's squeezed. I mean, Arjun is fighting in a civil war against his cousins and people he loves very much. And he's squeezed and he despairs. Krishna represents our true self. He's in a civil war on the opposite side from cousins and people he cares very much about, and he reacts far differently. And that's one of the big benefits of studying the Gita. Learning who you really are and what needs to be squeezed out. And to be squeezed out, it has to be accepted. Whatever your reason for being here, I accept you wholeheartedly. Bailey's still thinking about you, Sandra and Tip. Thinking about all of you until we meet again.